What's up, world? Ali Red is back in the building for the All Things House Music podcast. I know it's been a minute, but don't worry, we are back. Tonight's guest is Toronto DJ, producer, and record label owner, Demuir. We touch on topics such as his musical upbringing in the house music community and house music scene. We also touch base on race and inclusion within the house music scene. And finally, we speak on the importance of building your own community and having your own platform and being successful at it. Once again, everybody, thank you for the support. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow All Things House Music for more. Demuir, what's good, my boy? How you doing today?
All is well. I'm good, man. You know, I'm just settling into Chicago here.
Yep.
Been about going on 4 weeks now.
Okay.
But yeah, just getting settled in. Finished building up studio finally. You know how that is with cabling and stuff, but it presented a really good opportunity to just start nice and clean. So that's all done. And tomorrow I'm going to be calibrating the room just to make sure my mixes come out right.
For sure. But yeah, we'll definitely get into the move aspect of things. But I wanted to start first. Could you explain kind of your beginnings? Not in house music. We'll get to that later. I'm talking about like the musical beginnings.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, for me, I grew up in a West Indian home. My parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. So music was always a core part of, our lives. From start of the morning to the end of the day. My dad would always play a lot of jazz, calypso, rock, everything in between. So, yeah.
Nice. So how did that beginnings kind of form your musical taste, kind of growing up?
Well, I mean, I have to say my dad and his vinyl collection, and he also DJ'd for fun while also being classically trained. So it was an interesting mix or plethora of different exposure to music, different types of music as well. So that's really where it began for me. And I'd say my curiosity when it came to production came in, 90s hip hop when I started realizing a lot of the samples those guys were using were in my dad's record collection. So it just went from there.
Yeah. I often tell people or explain to people there is a lot of correlation between that 90s hip hop and like house music. Some of the same type of hardware was getting used. The SPs, the MPCs, and all that stuff. So there's a lot of boom bapness in both actually.
Yeah, especially with Jackin House. I have to say, Jackin House leans more heavily into the heavy sample-based stuff.
Yeah.
Cues from 90s hip-hop for sure.
Do you think that's why you were more, or we'll get to Jackin House. So, fast forward a little bit, getting into the house music scene. What age were you when you kind of jumped into that scene?
Oh, my exposure to house was around, I want to say 15 or 16. One of the first, I was blessed to hear this track, I Got This Feeling by Carrie Chandler.
Yeah.
And ironically, I remixed it last year.
Yeah.
I was lucky and grateful for that opportunity. Without that track, somebody was mixing it on a local college radio station called Ryerson in Toronto. And that was it for me. And then after that, it was Strings of Life,
Derrick May,
Detroit techno, rhythm, all that stuff. That really just got me locked in for sure.
Yeah, man, for sure. So from that point, was it production first or was it DJing first that you kind of got into?
It was DJing first.
Okay.
With hip hop primarily. And then when house came around, I was curious about that. So I DJ'd, probably from 15 to 17, like just all vinyl, doing small parties at home and with friends, practicing with friends.
Yeah.
Then production wise, I really went bananas with it around 17, just to sort of understand how they put these records together.
Yeah.
Knowing that I had the samples in my dad's record collection, right?
Perfect,
So
right? Yeah, yeah. Now, during that time, was it you were using computer or using outboard gear? How was that process?
predominantly outboard gear. I was using a super old Akai sampler. It had like
Okay.
12 seconds of sample time.
Yeah, yeah.
The more you sample, the more degraded the sample would be. And I
Hmm.
used a Casio, forget, is it the SK? I think it had the 4 pads.
Yeah, I think it's SK
But
or CK, something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh huh.
So I figured out quickly, put the record on 45 RPM to get more sample
Hmm.
time out of it. So yeah, it was outboard stuff predominantly, and I had a Korg Triple D1 drum machine.
Okay.
Started learning my craft.
So obviously there was no like YouTubes and all that stuff
Yeah.
during that time. So can you explain to the not the kids these days, but the people these days the difference between learning processing through outboard and not knowing they kind of stumbling through compared to using the dolls today.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything for the way I learned about production, because without the presence of resources like YouTube, etc., and the internet, you were forced to really train your ear to make sure, did they tune the drums on that track with the bass, and listen over and over and over again, and a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
So that was the extent of it. It was learning, whether it be a Tribe Called Quest record, like something, for example, something like Low End Theory when that came out, and what Bob Power did from an engineering perspective with that record. I
Yeah.
remember listening to that record with my boy Roger, Mr. Attic.
Hmm.
We were in his car for hours dissecting that record. And then we went on a whole journey of, let's find these samples that they
Yeah.
use on it in almost every city between Toronto and Detroit, like crate digging trips and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I that's the key difference, is you really understood and listened to the records over and over and over again, and then try to recreate that. And the part of the beauty of that trial and error is you start to discover yourself and your own sound within that production journey. Whereas with YouTube, it's very beneficial. It shortens the learning curve, certainly, but you miss all of that stuff that I call them the little grains towards mastery,
Yeah.
you know, where you, as you persevere and it starts to become intuitive, you know, you get a deeper understanding of things. Whereas with YouTube, it's like click here, click there, and you got it, but you
Yeah.
miss all of the essence in between.
Yeah, you miss all the hardness, the hardness of it, like failing and trying
Yeah.
to understand like why I failed and boom, 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 and then succeeding. And then now there's one more tool that you have in your production toolbox, if you will,
Yep.
So you mentioned like the whole Toronto scene. How was that scene growing up? Like musically, was there house music influence, DJing wise? How'd that go?
Yeah. Toronto, compared to today, I have to say the club scene was thriving. In different conversations I've had with like a Sneaker, Mark Farina, about the time when they played at Industry in Toronto in particular.
Okay.
Uh, a bit later on, there's a club called Footwork that Joel Smythe and his partner Stefan set up before they created what is now known as Coda. And that was for like the beginnings of tech house starting to come through. But like in the 90s, Toronto had, Twilight Zone. It's like just a lot of good organic clubs that were strictly about the music itself,
Hmm.
and the community just grew and spurred from there. Uh, the interesting thing about Industry, because the thing about Industry is a lot of people would record their sets and burn them to CDs, and then you had to go to the record store to get the cassette or the CD. And it was a fascinating time because I couldn't go. My parents were super strict. But it got to a point in my production where I was making these records and you would hear it on these CDs, like these guys playing my records, and I had no idea. until I heard the mix CD, and so hearing that as a kid, was very inspiring. But that organic nature, the rave culture,
Mhm.
going to a phone booth to find out where the location
Yeah,
was, and
yeah,
all
yeah.
that is crazy in Toronto. It's very great.
That's dope. So you mentioned your parents during the time they're being strict.
Yeah.
How did they like or dislike you kind of getting into this, raver type of scene? Obviously, they don't know the ins and outs of everything, what goes on, in the scene, But
Yeah.
how did they take this?
My parents were super cool with me um, being creative and learning something,
Hmm.
uh, because I would just be in the house all the time.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
So they enjoy that part of it. But when I was like, "Hey, I want to go see Sneak play my record," they're like, "Who's that? And where is the party?" Downtown? No, you're not going anywhere. And, if you had a very, insistent mother like I had, she did a little deeper digging and said, "Oh, this is what goes on at those
Yeah,
parties. You're not going anywhere,"
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so they were good with it, but they wouldn't let me go out.
Go out, yeah. Until you what, hit 18, 21, or you had to be out the house?
Yeah. This is a West Indian household,
Yeah, I know.
dude. So I I,
Ti
uh, I
time
didn't see
out. Explain what that means to everyone, 'cause everybody may not understand what that means.
a West Indian household is very much. I'll give you a perfect example. If your parent calls you and you say "what" instead of "yes," that is controversy. It's chaos.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna get your ass beat
Mhm.
before you can move. So, in a West Indian household, the discipline, a focus on you as, a person of color needing to be 3 times better than the norm, like, that's deeply entrenched in me, and that's we will probably get into this later, but that's why I have, when it comes to certain bullshit things I see in music and people, I don't fuck with that or tolerate it one iota. Like, when people show you who they are, you got to believe them.
Very true.
And you have to set some very strong boundaries, that coincide with your value as an artist and a person.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that's what it means to grow up in a West Indian
for sure,
household.
bro. Yeah, I have many friends that are from that culture, and just being in a black household, sometimes it's strict over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Strict.
That's true.
It's strict over there,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
You know how
But
it
yeah,
is.
man. So okay, so we're out of that scene or that time frame. Was this kind of like a career path that you wanted to do full fledged, or did you do other things in lieu of DJing and production?
Yeah, no, hey, it was a great time to
Mhm.
make records in the '90s. Like, I was 18, 19 years old, getting like 10,000 US a month in the '90s, from selling, and then you translate that to Canadian, it's substantially more money being in Toronto. Because at that time, you see, the thing people need to understand is in the '90s, it wasn't unusual for someone to do a remix and get $30,000 to $50,000 for a remix because it wasn't as saturated like it is today. It was vinyl based. The bar of production quality had to be at a certain level.
Yeah,
Um, and it wasn't this culture that we have today. And I'm not complaining. I'm just giving
what
you
it
the
is.
difference in the macroeconomics of music production and social media today, where
Yeah.
somebody can now just go out, get a laptop, do a quick edit, and throw it up on SoundCloud and say, "Hey, I've arrived." Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas in the '90s, you really have to learn your craft. Like, I've seen people who, gone through the whole discipline of building their craft, putting their songs on vinyl, going to the record store or distributor and saying, "Are you interested in purchasing these for larger sale?" And seeing them just get turned down at the retailer distribution level, and that particular release was no longer heard of and never saw the light of day. Um, so it was a great time. So I was like, geez, if I'm 18 making this kind of money, I was like, yeah, I'm going to continue doing this. And then of course 9/11 happened. Um, the iPod happened,
Oh
right?
yeah, that time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So the cost of music and people just not traveling for parties as much, it created this perfect storm. So, and at that time I went through a divorce. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna chill out and do this corporate shit in
Yeah.
the financial services
Okay.
sector for the next 10 years before I return to music professionally
And then
around.
that was it. Like there was no more for you
Yeah,
during
there's
that
I
time, really.
mean, the most I did was, I had Reason and I
Yeah.
would dabble with it and just stay in touch with, oh wow, CDJs, you can now scratch and it sounds like vinyl. I would stay in touch with where the technology was moving, but there was a time, and I don't regret this time, where I put such a value on, corporate life and having this job and it starting to define you and how much money you make. And that is the end all and be all of determining your happiness. But when my uncle passed away at 41 of a heart attack in
Yeah.
the McDonald's in Brooklyn, that just changed my whole perspective
I bet,
of
bro.
what means more
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I returned to music. The irony in this, Ollie, is like, like I'm actually substantially happier with pushing my life forward and it being what it is, and then seeing the money just sort of follow you
Yeah.
to that,
Yeah. Yeah. That's good,
whereas
man.
in this whole corporate rat race thing, you're chasing dogma, somebody else's dream.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely see that with a lot of my friends or ones that kind of gave up the corporate life or kind of still in it. It's a weird the best way that I can kind of sum it up is find something that works for you.
Mhm.
If the corporate work for you and you can do music, do music. If
Yeah,
if it doesn't, do that. But whatever you do, just do it wholeheartedly because the true light of your passion will shine, like whatever that is, you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
I call it your life coming after you.
Yeah.
Whatever's designed for you will be there for you and will find you under any certain circumstance. And that whole piece, the point you made about people being in the corporate sphere
Mhm.
and balancing their artistry, there's nothing wrong with that. I did that for, geez, I want to say 2-3 years before I was able to just go full time with this. I mean, some of the stuff I did during that time, I would never do again because I was starting to sacrifice my health. Like literally come home, work out, and then go be in the studio from like 7 to 2 a.m. and catch 3-4 hours of sleep and then go back and to work. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
same,
The
but
grind.
yeah,
The grind for
I
sure.
enjoyed that time too. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. All right, man. So you're back into the scene, full heavy right now. How has the scene changed? Obviously, the technology has gotten more advanced. I'm sure there's a shit more DJs. But how did it advance in your view?
I think well, it's changed substantially. To long and short of answering your question, it's changed substantially. I think the biggest thing is and I alluded to this earlier, is the point of entry. Good or bad, it's substantially lower. Like there's no barrier really. If you want to get into music production, you can decide that today and pursue it. and throw your stuff up on Mixcloud or SoundCloud, or you just post on your feed, for that matter, a link to your Dropbox, and you're somewhat in the game. Uh, the the other substantial thing is social media, right? Um, I have an interesting relationship with social media. I used to follow this whole you got to do the algorithm thing, and I'm just like, it's too people's attention spans are so shortened now by social media that it doesn't matter. Like when somebody chooses to lock into your music and who you are as an artist, they're there. They're not going, provided you're consistent with the quality of your craft, and you're engaging an audience that connects to you and you understand that. And that leads me to my next point about the overall change. The degree of saturation in music today is phenomenal, and it doesn't matter what genre we're talking about. There's just so much music. And we have streaming services, like Spotify and other people saying music is ubiquitous. It should be accessible to anyone and everyone. Further, lowering its monetary value versus what it was in, say, the 70s or 80s in terms of what you got for a record per se.
Yeah.
So you have all of that oversaturation happening. And I just take the approach of, well, it means that there's a lot of good music and there's also a lot of very bad music. So you should invest in your craft in a manner that puts you in the good space that people will just buy without having heard whatever your new stuff is. It's kind of like that, the cream rises to the top sort of thing. Uh, I I can identify with that, which leads me to my final point, which is this new environment has allowed artists like myself to create a pretty comprehensive platform that's based on their own terms and their own rules. People like Little Richard, who signed very bad contracts before Michael Jackson had to buy his publishing and give it back his masters along with it. Um, we can avoid those situations today by saying, you know what, I'm gonna just erect my own platform, and with a good business and marketing plan and quality music and a product, you will do well, and you can
For
do
sure.
that in this environment today. So I know that was a pretty elongated
No,
response.
no.
Those pillars I mentioned, all four of them are substantial to take note of as a new artist.
For sure, for sure. So one of the pillars that you mentioned that I want to further expand on is having your own platform. When I first heard of you was about a little before COVID, so like 2019 ish.
Mhm.
And I got introduced to you by Paul here from Late Night Jackin. He's like, yo man, check out this dude. His drums is crazy. Blah 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 blah. Which they are crazy. So I've been a fan since then. But could you explain kind of how you have your own platforms, either the label, the YouTube channels, and just the overall tree of what you got going on.
Yeah. So the tree or the branches thereof consist of, of course, there's the open access social media, so Instagram, YouTube, um, and I'm trying to think social media wise. Yeah, Facebook as well. I leverage, but more so Instagram, I would say, is the major branch there. Um, and when it came to YouTube, once COVID showed up and kept us all at home, I saw a very good opportunity to um, just start sharing, different production techniques, music business conversations that I thought were necessary because nobody else was really doing that. And that took off into its own thing. And then I realized, geez, well, YouTube really isn't paying me as much as I should be getting for my own content. Um, I'm going to go to this thing called Patreon, who, supports creators and allows your audience to come and say, hey, if you want more of Demuir's content, subscribe. And I can package it up in which way to my choosing. That's why I do a lot of my sets. Like, I'm actually thinking about getting rid of SoundCloud, even though SoundCloud was a branch in terms of helping people discover my music. More and more, I just don't see the value in it, because between Bandcamp, which is another branch where I do like exclusive 24-hour releases and of that nature for the DJ community, because I just know my audience. Like, there's an education audience that wants to go on Patreon and get more of the educational stuff and music production and master classes that I've developed. And then you just got DJs like, hey, I just want that hot shit. Put it on Bandcamp and I'll go get it. So really those are the main branches. And then, yeah, I guess the last piece would be gigging. But this is the funny thing about this business in terms of how it's evolved. Like, Martin from Damn Swindle, he was here in Chicago over the weekend. He was asking me what percentage of time do I spend gigging? And I thought I was like, wow, that's an interesting question, because the previous model used to be, make great music, get on some great labels, and then from there you'll be gigging, and that where the lion's share of an artist's income comes from. And it's changed substantially when I said, well, I spend about 30% of my time gigging and 70% of the time in content creation. I was, it actually struck me to say that, have that come out of my mouth, but it's the truth, right? And I'm thinking, geez, that's ideal for me. Like, as much as I love gigging, I don't want to kill myself in a a literal DJ and gig economy where there's people who, just because they look a certain way, are playing these pre-recorded sets and stuff. I'm not trying to compete with that. I don't need to, right? So, those are the branches of my platform, and the other pieces, of course, are the obvious ones. Purveyor Underground is my digital label, and Purveyor Underground Limited is the vinyl side. So it's a nice ecosystem of content creation / generation, to which I own the if it's my own stuff, I own the masters and publishing for any artist we sign on. And it's just a type of deal that I would like to have. You've released with us, right?
Yes, sir.
We say, give us the opportunity to license and put out the music, but you keep your masters and
Keep
your
everything.
public. Because I'll tell you, in the longer run, that's where the money's at. And sorry, I keep adding branches, but that's the other significant branch, is music publishing. I have about 3 different organizations collecting on my music publishing. My catalog's pretty extensive. I have over
600, right? Yeah.
plus songs and remixes. When people ask me to do a remix, it's either a nice flat fee to get the opportunity to own the masters and publishing of my remix, or I just say I keep the masters and publishing in perpetuity, and I got people collecting on it. So that's really the ecosystem for me.
That's dope, bro. So often, and you touched on the business side of things. Often when we begin, new things, and everything is fresh and new, we bright eye, bushy tail type of things. Often we forget about the business side of things, and often we overlook those things because we think people are, just as fresh and new and want us to succeed type of deal, which is far the Not the case at all.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us kind of some of the business things that maybe you wish you changed or wish you were new kind of going into things, and kind of how you run your side of things now?
Yeah, I think I I certainly wouldn't be as naive when it comes to, the whole quote unquote, your manager saying this is a great label, you need to sign to it, and yeah, give them the track for 25 years or sign that perpetuity deal. Thankfully, I've only done honestly one perpetuity deal. I've done some 25-year ones where it's a joke,
Yeah.
uh, the labels, they play this game of keeping the cost higher. So the statement it's never in your favor, even though everybody's playing the song and the cost to put out a record is substantially lower. It's not like you're pressing 5,000 pieces of vinyl and you have all of these true upfront costs. No, you're going to say that you didn't get the master already mastered, that you had to imaginary spend money to master it, and then these inflated costs for bullshit PR stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, those type of deals, I obviously they're very few, and I don't do anymore. Um, the other thing is this whole game of PR, and I don't know if it's still prevalent out there, but I don't do it anymore. Where you have these PR firms saying, "Hey, yeah, we know you're on social media, but give us a retainer of $10,000, and we'll make sure that." All the booking agents and promoters know about you and da 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 da. Or, spend X dollars to get on the cover of this magazine. I don't know if, if those firms are still prevalent or around. Um, but it's a watch out. Admittedly, I've done um, one campaign. I did one campaign to promote my album Six Headed Freep. It was an album I released on Mark Farina's GLA label back in like 2014 or 2015. Spent like $3,000
Mhm.
to give it to a firm that basically had a bunch of email list of all of these DJs and sent the record to them, and then they sent it back to me. Oh, look at this DJ has discovered your music now. Like, it's just bullshit.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
better you're better off just building your own network of relationships. Um, and over time, those pay off in the long run. So yeah, I'd say those are the two things
Yeah.
that as a
Those
big
are I guess those firms are still around, but they're not really firms anymore. They're more like, I can get your song in front of like a Spotify list, or
yeah,
put all those important lists. So now you're getting, thousands of views, or listens a month or whatever. So they're still
yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. Perspective is always interesting, right? The moment I decided, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't pay attention to. I mean, I get a lot of unsolicited DM and requests from these people telling me about how they can enrich my career prospects, but it's just garbage in and garbage out in the end, because what matters is what sustains you in terms of building your own platform is the quality of the music, and call it the content you put out, and I tend to create very honest music. I want people, when they hear my stuff, to know within the first two bars that it's mine.
Yeah.
Um, that's really what artists should strive for, in my opinion. And once you have that, you don't need to sign these bogus deals. Some manager or some person in your camp trying to, oh, you need to get onto this bullshit Solardo label, like, which was one of the things I heard, and I love my manager, no disrespect to my manager. But at the time, that was the conversation. Oh, they got such a great label, and they're fucking jerks at the end of it. Part of my friends, but they do those practices of inflating statements and then saying, "Hey, we don't owe you any money. We know you mastered that record, but we're just going to inflate the cost so we don't have to pay you." And
Yeah.
it's just so unnecessary. But that's part of the naivete I had earlier. But on the flip side, I've had very pleasant experiences for the most part with most labels that respect artists' music, treat them fairly. Um, Hot Creations is one with High Live and Dirty. That's just done right.
Yeah.
And I continue to have good relationships there. And I can rhyme off a bunch of other labels, but
Yeah.
it's necessary. Yeah. What I tell artists is, learn from the naivete of others, including myself. Um, and I always encourage two key things, don't get wrapped up in the local bullshit stuff. Like there's that whole thing. I think all artists sort of go through this, like, oh man, I got to blow up in my city first and then I could take on the world. That that died when the internet blew up, right?
Yeah.
The world
Hmm.
is a much smaller place. I can create something in the four corners of my studio, and once I hit that send button, it's everywhere.
It's out there. Yep.
And
Hmm.
it's touching people in many different ways. So, lean more into that aspect of it, that you're already just focus on a global level, and everything else will flow nicely to you.
Yeah, man. Personally, I've reached out to you. Obviously, I'm on the label. I reached out to you for like advice in the whole, game. And one of the first things you gave me was, don't think local, think global, think globally, because once you make it big, globally, the local will just you're here already, so you're gonna blow up already.
Yeah, their hands are forced locally. And even if man, and even if they don't do that, like if there's a certain club locally that's your dream to play at or whatever, and if they don't do it, like it's their loss.
Yeah.
Overall, like I'll always like I remember early in my career, I always loved those moments when those quote unquote big clubs were bringing this artist and like they dropped like five of my tracks in the same night,
Yeah.
and everybody knows it's my shit.
Yeah.
So over time, like we said earlier, what's meant for you will be there for you, and it's going to come after you, provided you're putting the work in.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I want to talk about, because I know we said we're going to mention it, later on the pod. Your mother had some words of advice to you that you have to be as a black man, you have to be 2 to 3 times better than everyone else.
Yep.
Now when I say that to non black people, they're like, why is that? Like, that shouldn't, that's not real. I'm like, okay, well, so can you explain to everyone exactly what your mom was kind of instilling in you from an early age?
Yeah, I think that's just part of the. There's a couple of things going on there. From a West Indian perspective, coming into North America or wherever, that's call it the immigrant mentality, right? Where there's this sense of you're entering a new world, and in order for you to be convincing to succeed and not denied certain opportunities, if you're better at 2 or 3x, even 5 or 10x, no one can hold you back, right? It's that's part of the mentality. I think the other thing is just, you know, I don't want to get racial necessarily, But we've had these experiences of Black Lives Matters and these ongoing discussions that that we have about scenarios where you place an opportunity for equally qualified candidates. One is black, one is not a person of color, and if they fit this certain mold, that that person that is not of color tends to be biased and marketed to get. And we see this in music. I mean,
Yeah.
look, you have a look at the lineups, and it took something like COVID and George Floyd to start, you know, putting that real question of, are we doing the right things by all people in terms of what this music represents?
Yeah.
That whole peace, love, unity, respect thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we started getting into these conversations about, ooh, you know what? We don't put enough women to headline in our shows. Oh, there's less black people playing. Oh, you know what? We need to recognize more trans and queer on our lineups because the music comes from that culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's this whole thing of it took that catalyst to have that conversation. So when it comes to being ready and prepared, you know, having that mentality of being 2 or 3 times better than what is being pushed will always put you further ahead, or at least in the conversation
Yeah.
of, you know, are you the guy we want representing the music? Are you the guy we want playing at our shows and stuff? Like that's just the reality. And it's well before this music, man. Like
For sure.
the civil rights movement and stuff. And again, I'm not trying to be racial. I'm answering your question from the context of culturally, where does that come from and why is it and why is it still here today? So I
Yeah.
hope I answered that succinctly
You
for you.
definitely did. Definitely did. You mentioned the whole COVID thing and people being more aware.
Mhm.
I believe during that time people became more aware, but I'm not sure if it's stuck.
That was
Um,
short-lived. It was probably good for about 24 hours
yeah,
when
yeah, yeah.
people put up that stupid black square.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I don't want to sound disheartened. George Floyd's death, it was tragic, but the response from privileged people, and I mean, we saw people changing their names, and again, no disrespect to to these people, but it's a poignant moment,
Yeah.
uh, having these conversations, and who knows? It's unfortunate, but I think, like you said, I don't think it's stuck in all corners of the world, and hopefully it will evolve. What I do notice is, and maybe you can weigh in on this,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been asking this question to different people in the scene. What I do notice is this thing of, oh, we got to get a black female on the lineup, like, and it's a good question to ask, and sort of check off the check boxes. And again, I'm not trying to disrespect people, but I find it interesting because of these questions of, oh, they're black, she's queer too, and she can DJ and shit. Well, shit, we need to get her on the lineup. And so I guess my question to you is, are you hearing more of that conversation, and as a result of that conversation, it kind of, if you're a male person of color, hetero even,
Mm-hmm.
it puts you in this interesting place. Like I don't know, man. I don't know if sexuality should be a part of, if you can just DJ or not. I'm not sure. What do you
So
think?
So my thoughts bases on everything like that is, can you DJ or not? That should be the entry of it. Can you DJ? If you can't DJ, all the other things really don't matter. One, if you can, DJ, um, I want to see it where everybody, it's inclusive. It's not just, oh, this person has that person has that person has that person has that. I want everybody. I like unity.
Yeah.
I want, whatever you identify as, I want you on the lineup because you are the person, not because whatever. I don't want to be put on a lineup because just because I'm black. No. One time it was during, when was this? And I didn't even notice it. It was during Black History Month, right? And a collective reached out to me. It was like, yeah, yo, do you want to play? I'm like, yeah, I'll play. And then the lineup comes out, and it's like, at first I was like, oh snap, it's an all black lineup, right? And then I'm like, oh shit, it's fucking Black History Month. So I'm like, oh, these fucking guys. And then I not necessarily I call them out on it, but it's like, like it's like Black History Month. I know you guys are trying to do your thing. Like thank you for booking me now, but like, what's the further like booking going to be down the line? They say, yeah, man, I'll get you on, blah blah blah. I haven't heard from these fools like in 3 years, dog.
Yeah.
3 years. So that's the like pandering like bullshit that is going on in the scene. If it's genuine, I'm down. But if you got me on this lineup just to check a fucking box, go kick rocks.
Yeah. Then, and that's and that is even more reason why people need to come equipped with their own platform. Like with Purveyor, we're throwing our own parties. We had Derrick Carter headline one of those parties at House of PS.
Yeah.
Had a great party in San Diego in your backyard there. With the warehouse party was phenomenal. I did a couple in Toronto, and trying to do more of those. That's the next part of the ecosystem, and how we can control this unnecessary discussion.
Yeah.
Of, oh, are they black? Are they queer? Is she female? Oh, perfect. Let's put, we shouldn't need to have these conversations. I guess similarly, the whole conversation about, do they DJ and produce? Those are the people we need to put on. And
that's another one.
And there's so much irony. There's so much irony in that, because there's people I know for sure that are just great DJs, but they feel pressured that they have to do this production thing, and what happens is the dishonest nature of that part of their career. They go out and ask other people to make, quote unquote, their music, so they can hang the producer title to their aesthetic, which is just a sad exchange. So again, you don't have to do that stuff if you're building your own platform, even as a DJ, right? I think some people just don't see the possibility of, or that they can build a very strong following by just being a very great DJ. But I'm of this belief that your audience is there and they want to hear what you got, and are prepared to support and consume in every which way possible. You just got to go after them. I know that sounds simplified, but that's the truth, because I'm telling you, as a person that thought, and I had to be on certain labels to get to a certain place, and I'm here telling you, the irony is I've done all of that.
Yeah.
I've been on Elrow, I've been on Hot Creations, Desolat, um, certain labels that are big that I will never work with again. I mentioned before, but nothing compares to, the strength of your own platform and pushing that forward.
Definitely building your own platform, have your own community, because the community will support.
Yeah.
And that person will tell that person, that person to that person, and now you have a whole tribe, of not necessarily followers, but people that really kind of vibe and dig what you got going on organically.
And it's just like your earlier point. We don't have to have these prescribed conversations of inclusivity or whatever. You're just going with the music and what the community desires. Like I had a great gig. Well, Certified Groovers out in LA is a perfect example. I mean, it's based on some funny and interesting things in terms of party favors and stuff.
Yeah.
But the point is that they have such a great, strong community. And the 8-hour set I played for them last year in December, was it December or I can't remember. But
Yeah.
I saw I saw my people there, man. Like I saw
Yeah.
older black women, older black guys, gay, straight, young people, all the like people who just know the music. Like I play an a cappella and they just like they're locked in.
Yeah. It's good.
My people are there. So, but I firmly believe something like that wouldn't have happened if I didn't build my own platform.
For sure. You mentioned about the being able to DJ and being pressured, but one of your YouTube videos you put up were speaking about ghost production. Can you highlight ghost production, ghost producing, not necessarily you doing it, but the pressures of someone having to do it?
Oh
Because
like not but let's take the whole female DJ producer thing. I know some great women who are extremely talented DJs, and I've had this conversation before where they feel their hand is forced to go find a ghost producer to in order to be looked at for gigs. And I just think that's so unfortunate, because you got to be a DJ and producer, right? And there's this whole economy around ghost production, unfortunately, where people do pay outrageous money for other people to make their music to pass as their own. But yeah, that's what I was referring to is, just people who know they're strong DJs, but feel forced that they got to get into this production thing, something that they don't really love or aspire to do, but they feel they got to do it, and they go pay for ghost production, which is unfortunate, but it happens.
yeah, there's definitely a market out there for that, for sure. So I kind of want to fast forward a little bit to figure out the reasons why you created your label. And I like to give game to upcoming producers, DJs, even people that's been in the scene for a while. As a owner of a record label, kind of some of the things you look for, and kind of do's and don'ts of submitting or being part of
Mm.
the label.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I created Purveyor Underground as a place for artists to have an opportunity with a label that respected their art. We don't tell artists like some labels, hey, change this, put a 65 bar breakdown here and fill it with drum rolls and all that bullshit. Like we don't do that. We just tend to sign what music I feel I would play. I do have people helping me with the label, but it's all based, on a feeling. To answer next question, the type of music we sign. I mean, I'd say we're signing more straight house, Jackin House stuff.
Hmm.
Not too much tech house. In fact, no tech house anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, no disrespect to that genre, of course, because I like to play some harder tech house myself, and
Yeah.
tech it it's just not something where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm dying to play that record, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I need whatever I'm feeling to translate into the label itself. Um, yeah, so I mean, that's how we go about selecting music. The label has a story. Our symbol, it sort of looks like a star, but it comes from the Underground Railroad. It actually a symbol. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but
No, no.
that symbol was the symbol used when slaves were fleeing um, from going north. They would find these sympathetic homes and churches, and they would have many different symbols that meant, hey, they're sympathetic to your freedom and attaining it. You can stay here and sleep tonight and have a meal and be free and respected as a man. The Underground Railroad ran as far up north to Halifax, Nova Scotia here. Well, not here. I'm in Chicago, but in Canada, right? So I saw that as a perfect opportunity to say, yeah, this is a place that puts artists first, music first, and it's underground always, you know, and it's a nod to the Underground Railroad and that story, because I think there's a natural synergy in the stories, of course, with the Underground and a relationship where I mean, that's why I created Purveyor Underground. I found myself in a place of, man, I signed to all these great labels and stuff, and I'm still having these stupid bullshit conversations about getting my money when I know the records have done well, and dealing with a system that's sort of pushing this. Oh, if you look a certain way, that's what we're gonna put on, right? And say that's the dope shit. But hey, Demuir, we love some more of your music.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, why would I do that? I'm just gonna create my own spot, and at work, people engage it, and they license the music as well. So yeah, Purveyor Underground digital side is that, and then we have Purveyor Underground Limited,
Limited. Yep.
which is the vinyl side. It's a great partnership with Juno Records because we continue to own the masters and the publishing of it. They just want the opportunity to put the records out, um, for fee, of course.
Of course. Of course.
And, but I mean, I think the deal is good. When you can have, you know, uh, an art. I just happen to have it out because uh, I'll watch it later.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I have these double LPs, and this record sold out.
Yeah, yeah. I did.
Vision sold out too.
Yeah.
It's great. And as far as my platform is concerned, we're going to be running a remix contest for somebody to have the opportunity to release vinyl as a part of that EP and have the remix on it. So yeah,
That's dope. That's dope.
thank you.
Man, so this interview has been especially this last part. I never knew about the Underground Road as aspect of it. Man, that's
Yeah.
that me being black. That makes me just want to put more music out with you. For sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we all, I hope you feel like, guys like yourself, Classy Touch.
Oh, homie, yeah.
We've had Byron the Aquarius on,
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Hill, Sneak, of course. It's good to have the caliber of artists we've been able to have on the label, and also the label for me on the context of freedom. It's a place where I can just release my stuff unfiltered not that I allow anybody to filter my music, but I can be like, you know what, man, I'm gonna hold on to that and put that shit out on my own
Mm-hmm.
label. Um, I think every artist needs to have that capability, that degree of freedom for themselves and their craft.
Dope, bro. Dope. Hell yeah. So this is my last question for you. We always like to end off with a question like this. From yourself now, going back to when you first started, either
Mhm.
producing or DJing, just in the realm of house music, what would you tell yourself then to better prepare yourself for now, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah, great question. Uh, I would just tell myself, um, what is for you is waiting for you, and continue to trust in the process that you're working on.
Yeah, I know, right?
But trust in that, because the mastery is just a thing you never know you've attained, right? You're old pursuit of it, and if you can just trust that, that process, what your desired end state it is will be right. It's already destined to happen. A lot, and the reason why I went through all that and said that is because, you know, I think artists, especially now, they go through a very exponential degree of self-doubt and dealing with crazy stuff. Like, I've seen artists with severe anxiety go down a path of just drug use, and unfortunately, it's resulted in fatalities. And other artists who have so much self-doubt, they just paralyze themselves and don't give the world their gift, you know? I think that piece is tragic. So, that's what I'd say. I mean, I'm glad I didn't completely, buy into the self-doubt stuff, given,
Yeah.
you need to be 2 to 3 times better, is that that really takes you over the hump. But, you know, when I look back, I did take that hiatus of like 10 years, and, not that I'm regretful, but I'm just, damn, like, what if I just kept going and pushed through it, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. For sure, man. Well, man, let everybody know where they can find you, the Instagram, the Facebooks, the Bandcamps, all that. And then obviously we'll have it in the description too, so they can click on it.
yeah. Yeah, I'm quite active on Instagram at Demuir. It's, probably one of the easiest things I'm on it pretty much every day. Patreon is the next area where I engage, and it's free to sign up to. I don't think some people know that it is indeed free. Like, we got quite a few members, uh, on that platform. So Patreon's great. I do release exclusive things from the vault, things on Patreon where, I own the masters for, and I've either re-released or created something new that I'll just put it on Patreon. So that's a great place to reach out. We also do seasonal, sample packs there too for anybody that's interested. And also I do a weekly production stream there where it's like being in the studio with me, and, create things from scratch, show you how I'm working on a remix, song arrangement, all those things, mix downs and stuff. So Patreon is the next area. Bandcamp, Jameer Beats, bandcamp.com. You can hit me with a follow there and stay in touch with any new exclusive releases I got going on there, if you're just focused on the music side as a DJ. Uh, Exciting projects we have coming. My album True School that I originally released on, DJ Sneak's label, Magnetic Recordings. Gosh, what was that, 2016?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Damn, it'll be like 10 years
10
next
years
year.
coming up, yeah.
Easy. So anyway, all this to say it's finally coming to vinyl. I literally, just before this meeting, I sent, some liner notes for the back. to Juno. So they're putting that out as a double album. So pretty sure once they get that mastered, the pre-order will come up. So be on the lookout for that and make sure you get a copy.
Definitely, bro. And when that comes out, we want to have you back on so we can go over some stuff for sure.
Oh, for sure, man.
For sure, bro.
I appreciate that. Yeah, True School, man. That album, yeah, I gotta say, it's like, yeah, it's one of my most favorite projects that I've done creatively. It was this whole concept of merging old school, approaches with new school thinking. That's why it's called True School. It's an amalgamation of both. And just, man, the reception on that was when I sort of knew, yeah, I really arrived. Like the feedback and push on that record, and the fact, and it's still played today. It's just exciting to me to have that come on vinyl now.
Hell yeah, bro. We can't wait. We can't wait, man.
Yeah.
But man, once again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sure, bro, for sure. And this has been a new episode of the All Things House podcast. Peace.
Hello.